So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And I figured I would dedicate this one to Joe Rogan. And in honor of Joe Rogan, as he's leaving the YouTube platform for Spotify, I figured I would go over 3 Joe Rogan myths, as well as comments that people had about Joe Rogan leaving and whether or not they'd follow him to Spotify. Now, before I go too far, I am Earthling64, yada yada yada. And who am I? I am an ex-reservist. I had a very short-lived local newspaper that I did completely on my own. Took all the photographs, wrote all the stories, did the layout, had the stuff printed, distributed everything for myself. I have a graduate level education as a result of a 4-year tuition scholarship that I received quite a while ago. I have traveled to many places in Asia and Europe and the US, one place in South America. Hopefully I can get to Africa at some point. And at some point in my life, I gained and lost more than 50% of my body weight. I quit smoking, exercised a lot, so I like what I look at in the mirror. Yeah, and I'm studying undergraduate mathematics and Korean for the last 4 years at least. So hopefully one day I'll be able to say that I can speak Korean fluently. I can read it, but I'd like to be able to read a newspaper, which, if you don't know, is a different level from being able to say, "Hi, can I order the soup?" Anyway, Joe Rogan, 3 myths. And yeah, I saw that Phil DeFranco did a piece on Joe Rogan where one person was saying that they can't stand listening to Joe Rogan recite the ads for 10 minutes of ads, and they're not going to pay to listen to him on Spotify Premium, and they just can't take him seriously. Well, I used to listen to Stuff You Should Know, and I listened to a lot of episodes of Stuff You Should Know, and the people there, they read the ads. And honestly, it just sounds like exactly like that. That's what the person's complaining about. And honestly, it doesn't sound like that big a deal. I know if they're not used to hearing Joe Rogan recite any of the ads, it might come as a shock. This person that they respect, just advertising like anybody else. But I'm sure for the people who are listening to the podcast, as in people who have always listened to his podcast, they would have heard his ads. And I'm sure he has a lot of listeners who access his stuff outside of YouTube, because I certainly have never heard him utter any ads. But somehow he makes money anyway, and probably not off of YouTube ads running on his platforms. I can't even think that there are ads that run on his videos. At least not that I've seen. I know on other people's. But my point is, people are going to make a big fuss about anything new, and they're going to predict their behavior erroneously most of the time. I'm sure that if it comes down to a simple thing of downloading Spotify and listening for free and listening to some ads that Joe Rogan, as well as Whitney Cummings, as well as Timothy Chaturangsuya, or any one of these people who recite ads in their podcasts. I mean, even Timothy, formerly Timothy De La Ghetto, he reads the ads from his bedroom. You can see his bedroom behind him. He's just reading some ads. And at least Whitney Cummings is doing it from her studio. But yeah, I think people are making a big fuss about nothing, and that me personally, I would have to download Spotify, and I don't want to. This is a secondhand phone that I have, and I don't want to put too many apps on it. And my life is already kind of full, so I don't mind taking the space that I would have given to a Joe Rogan podcast and doing something else with it. So yeah. Anyway, on to 3, and some of them are repeated. 3 Joe Rogan myths. I mean myths that Joe Rogan says, not myths about Joe Rogan. Number 1. For the longest time, Joe Rogan just kind of berated Joe Biden in that, Joe Biden is something that's seriously wrong with him. Now, he thinks that Trump, who is like 4 years younger than him, is fine, apparently. Everybody and their mama has heard the jokes that late night TV hosts made about Trump's covfefe. They've all heard all the jokes that were made about Trump, about his, was it cognizance test, his test of his mental fortitude, where he repeated Apple camera, whatever. We all knew, and we've seen interviews where he would just ramble from one topic to the next that seemed to be hardly in any way connected. But because Joe Biden forgot somebody's name once, or made a mistake here or there, he was seriously, repeatedly wondering out loud to anybody who would almost listen as to whether or not Joe Biden was really all there. Joe Biden went through all of the debates. Was it 2? Yeah, it was at least 2 debates with Trump on his own. There was nobody coaching him. I think that I heard Joe Rogan mentioning that, still calling into question Joe Biden's mental competency even after that, yeah, because he said something like, Trump, instead of like the first time where he went off and he was talking all over Joe Biden, this time he let Joe Biden talk, and everybody could hear that Joe Biden was, crazy or just angry. I'm like, no, Joe, where do you live? They turned off Trump's mic. They turned off everybody's mic. That's why Trump couldn't do it. Trump can't. Anyway, that's a Joe Rogan myth, because you can't go however long that Joe Biden did on your own, by yourself, on a stage, answering questions, and most people are going to not recognize if you have some obvious mental defect in your capacity. You can't do that. So, but there it was, I think Joe Rogan really cannot hide his conservative bias. He says, yeah, I believe in gay marriage, I believe in equality. Yeah, Joe, but you really do believe in some serious conservative values elsewhere in your psyche. Anyway, another Joe Rogan myth. Joe spouted and spouts the idea that there's this town in Georgia where they passed a law that said that everybody has to have a gun. And because they passed that law, the crime in the city, in that area, it went down because of that law that they passed. So that just shows you that if everybody has a gun, then that will stop crime. Guns actually stop crime. Well, I went and I looked that place up, and number one, it was a very, very small town, maybe like 2,000 people when they passed the law. Now they might have 20 to 30,000 people that live there. So initially, it seems very unlikely that a town with 1,000 to 2,000 people would really have a high crime problem. That is not the small town narrative that we know about, where everybody knows each other and everybody knows who does what, and there's no way that you can, those big bad crimes, the murders, the rapes, the assaults, all of those things, the drug peddling. That's not the narrative that we know about. We wouldn't expect that a town with 1,000 to 2,000 people is going to have much crime. So why did they make that law? Well, there was another town in another state that passed a law that said nobody could have a weapon in that area. And that town did that as a publicity stunt. And this town in Georgia also did this as a publicity stunt. And I guess they got publicity, and a lot of land developers came and developed the place. And it grew, by several orders of magnitude, you could say. So it seems really unlikely that with more people, you would have less crime. But that's what Joe Rogan says. And ask him about it anytime if you ever have the opportunity. And yeah, that is his belief because he saw it somewhere. I mean, I think most of us saw it somewhere. But it was wrong. Surprise, surprise, it was incorrect. And yeah, it's one of those things that, I have a tendency where I tell people stuff. Hey, there's just this amazing fact, but I don't want to look like an idiot. So a lot of times, if I have any doubt at all, if something doesn't add up, I go look for myself to see if it's true. Even after I tell them, maybe before I tell them, just to make sure that they don't come back to me and give me the ego gut punch of saying, that thing you told me, it's not actually true. But I don't think that Joe has that particular problem. For the third Joe Rogan myth, Joe Rogan recently had on a professional climber, this young lady, and while he was talking to her, he was telling her about the idea that chess players burn up to 6,000 calories in a day while they are playing tournaments, like high-level chess players. And I've heard that before, and it just didn't seem to make sense to me. It didn't really add up that they could do that. But apparently, at least half of it is true. They do lose weight during tournaments, but it seems like that weight that they lose is not as a result of burning all of these calories. It seems that the weight that they lose is because of a loss of appetite and their focus and a lack of sleep and just basically overall tension means that they don't eat as much or as healthily as they should, and they lose weight. And you say, well, hey, Earthling, I mean, you haven't really given us any proof that these people are not burning 6,000 calories. Maybe they are. Maybe some of them are eating just fine. Maybe some of them are sleeping just fine. I mean, really, how do you know that they're not burning 6,000 calories? Well, the thing about burning calories is, calorie comes from calor, like hot in Spanish, and from Latin, whatever the roots are, it comes from heat. The way that they measure calories is they burn it like a particular food in a calorimeter, and they measure the amount of heat that comes out of the calorimeter from the food that was burnt. So you see that when you burn calories, when you drive an engine, when you do anything, heat is a byproduct of it. And there's a certain amount of heat that is released when you burn calories. You just can't get around it. That's just how it is. It's like a law of nature, literally. You can go look it up. And you can't be a chess player sitting down playing chess, burning 6,000 calories a day, like a marathon runner or somebody who is in a world's strongest man competition or anything like that, without generating a similar amount of heat. Now, if you're generating all of this heat, in order to not melt, you are going to have to sweat. That's how us humans work. And if you look at any of these chess players, I have not looked, but it's really easy to notice if anybody would say, yeah, chess players, they sweat so much during chess tournaments. But that's not a thing. In addition, let's say you are burning all these calories in your brain. The temperature that your brain would probably get up to is probably not going to be a healthy temperature for a human brain to exist at. So you're very likely to do some damage to your brain if that is how our brains could work. Also, have you ever noticed that when you think really hard, you can, think like twice as hard as if you don't really try? Yeah, me neither, because that's not a thing. You can't try to think 3 times as hard as you did this other time. There's no way to judge something like that to say, oh, you're thinking so hard now that you're burning up so many more calories. That's not how a human brain works. Anyway, I've spoken about some of these Joe Rogan myths before, but again, in honor of Joe going to Spotify and getting his, nobody knows how much money I got, reported $100 million. I just figured I would do that. Anyway, guys, feel free to like, share, subscribe, unlike, anything like that, the same way that you would if this was something that you put out and you wanted people to react to it. Thank you. Have a good one.